Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us. I have Meta Thipawang, Project Manager of the Cooperative Orthotic Prosthetic Enterprise, COPE, from the Lao PDR. I have Tihamér Czika, Deputy Head of Mission of the European Union. Thanks for joining us. I have Alissar Chaker, Resident Representative of the United Nations Development Program here in Cambodia. Thank you, Alissar, for joining us. I have Abdul Hadi Amiri, the representative of Afghan Landmine Survivor Organization. Hadi, thank you very much for joining us here. I have Dr. Vivath Cho, Disability Lead, the Australian-Cambodian Cooperation for Equitable Sustainable Service Program, Access. Thank you very much, Dr. Cho, for joining us. And finally, I have Vannarith, the Program Coordinator, ASEAN Regional Mine Action Center, the RMAC. I also want to thank Hadi's colleague, Suleiman Amini, who is doing us a wonderful service of translating from Farsi into English. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll just jump right in because time is not on our side. So as many of you know, cooperation and assistance is really a hallmark of the convention. And since I started 20 years ago on working on the convention issues, there's not a day that's gone by when cooperation assistance does not come by my desk, some issue related to cooperation and assistance. The drafters of the convention, they knew very well that if this convention was going to be implemented, there needed to be cooperation and assistance. And the states, the mine-affected states, were very vocal about this when they signed the convention in Ottawa and when the negotiation process was going on. So since the Nairobi Action Plan of 2004, the Cartagena Action Plan of 2009, the Maputo Action Plan of 2014, the Oslo Action Plan of 2019, they all contained references for cooperation and assistance and how to improve in this regard. And I'm certain that the next action plan will also contain this very important article of the convention. And it's critical to putting the end to the suffering casualties caused by anti-personnel mines. Now, the other evening, I was sitting with Meta in the lobby of this hotel, and we had a conversation about COPE's work. It was really great to learn about all the efforts that were being undertaken by COPE to mobilize the resources they needed to work. So it's my pleasure to turn now to Meta to share with this wonderful audience we have the efforts that COPE has been putting forth to mobilize resources and a lot of the support that COPE is offering beneficiary communities. So please, the floor is yours, Meta.
Good afternoon. Thank you, moderator, that gave me a floor. And I feel very much honored to be with the privileged panelists alongside with me. Again, my name is Meta Thipawang. I'm the program manager for Cooperative Orthotics Prosthetics Enterprise, and we make it short is COPE. And COPE is a local organization that run by a woman with disabilities like myself, and we really focusing on to provide. We are partnership with the Center of Medical Rehabilitation. Okay. Slow?
There's a little problem with interpretation, so we're pausing a second until we get the all clear. So sorry to the panelists. Session has an issue, huh? Okay, everything fixed? Okay, Meta, please. If you don't mind, start from the beginning.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, moderator, to give me a floor to share some of my thoughts and review, and feels honored to be with the Paris panelists today. And let me share with you some of the work that COPE. COPE is stand for Cooperative Orthotics, Prosthetics Enterprise, and the short name we call COPE. And the COPE is run by a person with disabilities, is myself, and together with small teams. We partnership with the Center of Medical Rehabilitations, Ministry of Health, to support people with physical disabilities to access, or including the victims' assistance that could access to the affordable and quality assistive device that can support their functionings and be able to be back to the society and the communities. COPE has been started in 1997. Since then, we have a lot of effort that we try to mobilize the resources to support the victims' assistance as well as the person with disabilities, because as some of you might know that Laos, PDR, the geography is quite really mountainous areas, so it's quite difficult for a person with disability or victim assistant to move from place to the others. Some of them live in very rural areas, and then they burden with their mobilities, and it's very difficult to encourage them to access to the rehab center in the centers. With this, we have thoughtful how to bring the service nearby their communities. So in 2016, the initiatives of COPE management teams, also together with the governments, we have mobile rehabilitation service kind of service, the models that we bring on the service nearby the communities. That service has been together with the technical staff and also prosthetists and the people who can do measurements and also equipment, some necessary equipment to do castings in the communities. So the vehicles together with the resource go through the communities, and we do assessments for 2-3 days camps, and then we bring back on those castings necessaries that fit to their bodies, and then we do the publication at the center level. And 1 month later, we go back to the same communities. We appoint with the victims assistants and also person with disabilities to fit in and try on their device. So these models has been really successful, as I can tell, so that we can encourage a lot of people that access to the service. With this, we also approaching the international sources of funding, donors, and also as per a lot of crises that COVID-19 has been really impact in terms of to the service, but people on the ground still waiting for the support because of one lifetimes. They cannot use only one device throughout the life of theirs. For example, like me, I have orthosis. Every time if I gain more weight, then we need to do some more casting, need to fit things with the new device to support the well functionings. With this, we also approach some private public partnerships, small scales that we can approach to the private company that really they focusing for their area. So this is a very small scales, but we still think like it's very important to have this contribution from the private sector, that they can contribute sums to the communities. Some of them, they might don't know that what they can support for the people with disabilities. So we really approaching to them, and then we can do bit by bit, and then we can have get them more, and then we really want to have the service running. With back in 2019, we my first met with Princess that visit COPE visitor centers, and he really brought into the thing like maybe we talking about some of the good model that really work in Jordan, that work with the private restaurant that can whether they can add one single dollar that into their bill, that they can contribute to some kind of social back to the social work that they can contribute to. So I thought a lot on this, and we have worked on this and find success once. We will try to do more, but because of the pandemic at the time, we haven't continued. But I believe in the future, yes, we will continue to engage with the private, but it's very difficult to mobilize the funding, as we have talked previously with some of the different parts of the world still facing the challenge the same as my organizations that really try to mobilize the fundings as well to have the service running for keeping the people with disability and victim assistance to get access to what they need and be able to be with the same society with other peoples and optimize their full potential, like be with other like normal and not really discriminate. So this will be a lot to keep the rights of persons with disabilities. Is really helpful to work on this. So I hope that I can share some thought on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meta, and I hope that people do speak to Meta, because she did speak about some other private-public partnerships that she has on, I believe it was on Zoom calls at one point when you got some private people together to see if you can raise some funds. But it's a very interesting model, and I think I recommend you all to visit COPE in Lao PDR. Unfortunately, as we heard during this meeting, there's a lot of organizations of persons with disability that do suffer from a lot of lack of funding, and in many mine-affected countries, a lack of resources leads to lack of inclusion, carrying out their daily activities to support their beneficiaries. I think we heard that loud and clear, as I mentioned. Now, I'd like to give the floor to, I had a conversation with Abdul Hadi about the historical engagement of also in Afghanistan, also as the Afghan Landmine Survivors Organization, about his work and the work of also and his experience in mobilizing funding. So Hadi, please, can you tell us over the years the support to landmine survivors and disabilities and some of the difficulties you've encountered in mobilizing funding for your organization in Afghanistan?
اجازه بدهید با تشکر از برگزار کنندگان این فرصت برای شرکت در این کنفرانس مهم آغاز کنم. من نماینده مؤسسه افغان‌های متأثر از ماین آلسو هستم، یک سازمان محلی که از سال 2008 در کابل شروع به فعالیت نموده است.
Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to start by thanking the organizer for providing me the opportunity to participate in this important conference. I represent the Afghan Landmine Survivors Organization, a local organization that has been active since 2008 in Kabul, Afghanistan.
مؤسسه افغان‌های متأثر از ماین مستقیما از حدود 1600 قربانیان ماین افراد دارای معلولیت آسیب دیده حمایت کرده و اکثر آنها را در دیدابیس خود ثبت کرده است. این رابطه بین آلسو و قربانیان ماین پل ارتباطی بین جامعه آسیب دیده دولت همچنین شرکای بین‌المللی ایجاد کرده است.
The Afghan Landmine Survivors Organization has directly supported 1,600 mine survivors and persons with disabilities and registered most of them into its database. This relationship between the Afghan Landmine Survivors Organization and the mine survivors has created a bridge between affected communities and the government, as well as the international partners.
خدماتی که ما ارائه کردیم شامل حمایت روانی، اجتماعی و اقتصادی، ارجاع کردن تعداد زیادی از قربانیان مین و افراد دارای معلولیت به منابع مختلف برای دریافت حمایت بیشتر مانند ابزارهای مصنوعی، ابزارهای تحرک، تحصیلات و مشاغل، مراکز آموزشی مبتنی بر جامعه که در آن قربانیان مین و افراد دارای معلولیت به آموزش سواد، زبان انگلیسی، برنامه‌های کامپیوتر می‌پردازد. توانمندسازی زنان دارای معلولیت با آموزش آنها در زمینه وکالت و مهارت شغل، دسترسی به مدارس و به بیمارستان‌ها.
The service that we provided included psychosocial support and the peer-to-peer support, referral, where a huge number of mine survivors and the persons with disability in different sources to receive further support like artificial tools, mobility tools, education, and jobs. Community-based educational center where the Afghan Landmine Survivors Organization established where the mine survivors and persons with disability to educate themselves in literacy, English, and computer program. Also, the program for the empowerment of women with disabilities by training them in advocacy and job skills. Also, making the public buildings more accessible like schools and hospitals.
ما با ارائه این خدمات نه تنها به مشارکت اجتماعی اقتصادی قربانیان مین کمک کردیم بلکه پلی بین آنها و دولت ایجاد نمودیم. در سالهای اخیر شرایط برای همه به ویژه برای قربانیان مین و سازمانهای محلی که از آن حمایت میکند سخت بوده است. پل ارتباطی بین مستفیدین و دولت و سازمانهای مانند ما ایجاد کردن قطع شده و در بسیاری از موارد شکسته است.
By providing these services, we not only help with the social and economic inclusion of mine survivors, but also build a bridge between them and the government. In recent years, the situation has been tough for everyone, especially for mine survivors and the local organization that have been supporting them. The bridge between beneficiaries and government that organizations like us created has been interrupted and in many cases broken.
وضعیت اخیر به ما یادآوری کرد که سازمان‌های محلی مانند یالسو چقدر آسیب پذیر هستند. یک از چالش‌های کلیدی که ما با آن روبرو هستیم مشکل دسترسی به منابع است. در بحران انسانی مانند بحران‌هایی که از آن عبور می‌کنیم برای سازمان‌های محلی مانند ما حتی سخت‌تر است. اهدا کنندگان بین‌المللی عمدتاً با سازمان‌های ملی کار نمی‌کنند و سازمان‌های محلی اگر خوششانس باشند قراردادهای فرعی را از سازمان‌های بین‌المللی دریافت می‌کند و اغلب درصد کمی از بودجه ما به ما سرازیر می‌شود. در بحران انسانی سازمان‌های بین‌المللی اغلب تعطیل می‌شوند و سازمان‌های محلی بدون حمایت رها می‌شوند.
The recent situation reminded us how vulnerable local organizations such as also are. One of the key challenges we faced is the difficulty accessing resources. In humanitarian crises such as the one we go through, it's even harder for local organizations like us. International donors don't mostly work with the international organization, and local organization, if they are lucky, they receive subcontracts from the international organization, and often a small percentage of the fund trickle down to us. In humanitarian crisis, international organizations often shut down, and then the local organization will be left behind with no support.
بنابراین آیا تصور میکنید چه تأثیراتی دارد؟
He has a question that, so do you imagine what will be the impact? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdul Hadi. I think that's been a theme a bit through the week, is the lack of support to local organizations and the important bridge that they fulfill from the government to the most vulnerable in the community. Now, Ambassador Lovrenčič, you have been leading the ITF for quite some time now, and the ITF began as a regional organization and has expanded its geographical scope quite significantly. ITF also has projects that directly target mine survivors, and it would be great to hear from you about the ITF's cooperation assistance and your perspective overall on resource mobilization.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished guests, dear colleagues, cooperation and assistance is one of the most important aspects of Oslo Action Plan, and this conference is a testimony to it. And so I think it goes without saying we have to re-express our appreciation and gratitude to the organizers, to the government of Cambodia, European Union and others who help us bring this, what is a community, basically a global community of participants. The point 47 of Oslo Action Plan talks about the importance of bilateral, regional, international cooperation. It talks about South-South cooperation. It talks about exchange of best practices. And so I think it is very important that we look on both sides, on side of implementers, local implementers, because localization is of supreme importance, but also of mobilization of donor community about how to bridge this gap. And that's certainly an issue that we should be looking at more closely in the next year as we approach the review conference. Perhaps 2-3 points from point of view of ITF, who in modest capacity has been involved in donor mobilization, about what we see as some of important points that need to be addressed in order to be more efficient and effective. I think point number one in donor mobilization needs to remain permanent examination, what is important for the donors. I understand that this conference brings together victims and survivors, but we also have to put additional effort into understanding what are motivations of donor community, what are their foreign policy objectives, what are their humanitarian objectives. And if we will understand this better, I think we can write better concept proposals, we can find better lowest common denominators with donor countries and institutions. We can make sure that funds actually reach the local implementing agents. First and foremost, of course, we're talking about state parties, though, that have even an obligation because of the treaty to be engaged in the donor community. The treaty is a very powerful tool which establishes appropriate framework to work with donor community. It will be as strong as we make it strong, and so we need to continue using it as a basis for engagement of all state parties that are signatories. Point number one. Point number two, we should probably also examine those potential donors or existing donors who are not signatories, but share some of the principles of the treaty. There is a community of countries which, for different reasons, has not acceded, or as I say, acceded yet, but that share the principles that directly affect work in mine victim area. I don't think we can be satisfied with how well we are engaging this this group. And I would just like to underline that we have to be innovative in this regard as well about how to bridge this gap with non-signatories yet. We have cases where actually donor countries have not exceeded but are funding mine victim assistance very well, quite well. And I will not name individual countries, we know them, but I would just like to underline this point. And then, of course, here we are around round tables. To use the metaphor, we have to reach towards those who are absent from the round table of donors. There are some countries who are unfortunately either permanently absent or appear very rarely. This should not be the reason to somehow block them out of our minds, and we have to look at ourselves, what have we done in order to bring them closer to our area of work. I will again not mention any specific countries, but there's plenty of potential for improvement in this field, and I think conferences like this serve as well in order to build bridge to this third group. Concerning what is our reading of what community donor countries expect and want, while it is of state parties the main responsibility to set up a system which provides comprehensive health, social, economic, psychological support to mine victims. This all takes time, and so it is clearly that this is more medium, long-term goal of state parties. In donor community, of course, I think that we have to understand that they have much more short-term goals. They want to have immediate results. What I mean by this is they are especially attentive to visibility, and we can never be satisfied with the visibility that Mine Action generally is receiving around the world and in donor community as well. They want to have visibility in local communities. They want to have visibility in local media. They want to have some kind of measurement of near immediate impact. A lot has been achieved, but I'm just underlining this because it literally plays a role in the success of our funding proposals with donors. And it's understandable from their point of view. These are taxpayers' funds, and so they need to justify it in one way or another. As far as themes are concerned, I've also, with pleasure, noticed that some of the themes are more important in decision for funding in recent years. Gender equality, rights of women seem to be more prominent in recent years, which is very important. I hope that this can be addressed in the new action plan in an appropriate way. Right now, I think it's point number 33 in the action plan, but the language can always be improved, and we're reminded on a daily basis about the importance of this. And then finally, what we see in community of donor states, that they especially appreciate comprehensive set of activities, something that has been manifested by many of our colleagues, first with Mate starting and with others. So what we're talking about is project proposals or implemented activities which encompass both psychosocial support, sports, Paralympic sports. Here we are in Phnom Penh, just hosted the ASEAN Paralympic Games. What a wonderful event. Economic activities, agriculture, activities which end up even with some little earnings for mine victims, so that mine victims gradually turn into not a burden, but contributors to local communities. Youth-oriented programs, bridging the gap between mine victims and the youth, explaining to the youth what the issue is. I think this would elicit an even more positive response from donors. So to wrap up, I think that we should not neglect the issue of trying to understand objectives of donor community better. We have to put additional effort into this, and it's up to us how we will do this, and this conference contributes greatly to this better understanding of the needs of mine victims, which are the most important, which are paramount, but there also needs to be an additional effort to understand the needs of donor countries and then try to work on how to bridge this gap. And I'm looking forward to to work in the next year as well to better address this. Thank you.
Very much, Ambassador. And you mentioned something, very important, which was South-South cooperation and other cooperation models. And I want to just quickly, for a few minutes, come over to the RMAC, who's been working very heavily on South-South cooperation, to give us a little bit of an understanding of the regional efforts to strengthen victim assistance over the last year. Thank you.
Thank you for this occasion. So good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, I would like to briefly introduce AMAX. So as the ASEAN Regional Mine Action Centers, they has their own visions related to the ASEAN regional is peaceful, stable, and resilient communities, free from the risk and impacts of explosive ordnance. So in this, we have three mandates to function our work frames. That is enhancing raising awareness on the EOWs, and also promote victim assistance, and also research and knowledge sharing. In this work, we are partner with international and UN agencies to promote knowledge sharing and best practice among the countries affected. I think it's 5 countries more affected in ASEAN. And in this regard, we also have enhancing collaborations through the ASEAN Cooperation Funds that is supported. Recently, we have China Cooperation Funds to promote mobilize resource and capacity building in mine action in our Asian countries. And also we got the funded from Canada, working on the gender equality and inclusion in mine actions. And the last one is we got a corporate fund from Korean that working in victim assistance. This part we have 5 objectives to support in our regions. So allow me to introduce briefly. Number 1 is mean that establish VA networks that is that use as a regional platform to share the knowledge and research among the countries, and especially best practice. And number 2, related to the victim assistance support. And number 3, related to the assessments on the victim assistance in the regions, mostly with the 5 affected countries. And especially in Cambodia, we done these assessments. Number 4, related to provide psychosocial support. This is done in this phase. We provide this training to Cambodian, that is, we provide capacity building to health workers and also network survivors to support the victim in communities. The last one related to the research that we done. So recently we do the accessibility and inclusion service research on the EO victim assistance to analyze the situations, how we can improve the VA service in the communities. And the next coming, we're going to do another research in Laos and Vietnam on the community perspectives of human nutrient mine actions. That is the thing that we have done so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Abiyat. I think the, thank you very much. I think this exchange of cooperation assistance in this model is very important to avoid I think lessons learned avoids someone learning from the beginning. So I think it's very important to share all those lessons learned. Now let me turn to Alissar and the work of the UNDP. At the last global conference in 2019, we held a session on cooperation assistance, and one of the themes that came up was this transition from humanitarian to the development post-conflict setting, and earmark funding became scarcer for victim assistance. And other sources of funding needed to be explored or exploited more. And so it would be interesting to hear your views on how we can work with organizations such as the UNDP to foster cooperation assistance for victim assistance and ensure that through these processes that survivors aren't going to be left behind. So please, Alissar.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, partners. Happy to be, here and discuss cooperation. Because we always heard that, victim assistance, mine action needs concerted actions. So indeed, mine-affected countries have been struggling, to meet their clearance obligations, let alone their victim assistance obligations, and are having to regularly, request extensions due to various reasons. We heard a lot about the financial constraints, capacity constraints, but also it might be also political bottlenecks. There is a funding for mine action in general. This is particularly true in the countries which are close to really completion of their obligations under the convention. They seem to struggle to draw attention from donors. Because most of the funding is going to certain countries with conflict countries, and the bulk of it going to Ukraine now, but also because, partly because the last part of mine clearance, which also, have little humanitarian impact. The funding shortage is particularly, dire for victim assistance. If we go back to the Landmine and Cluster Munition Monitor Report of 2021, we see that there is a decrease of nearly 23% for victim assistance compared to 2019, but also, the little that was got in 2020 does not constitute more than 6%. So the funding is really a big problem. For UNDP, the mine action is, and by default, victim assistance is an integral component of rebuilding lives. And the mine action for us should translate into sustainable development dividends. As such, we promote cooperation and assistance, particularly for victim assistance in many forms. These include political support and advocacy. As part of the effort for universalization, UNDP advocates for the adoption and adherence and implementation of international standards and their translation into national laws and policies that guarantee the rights of people with disabilities, including survivors. We support several peace processes around the world, and this is, allows us to really mainstream mine action and victim assistance in these processes, and to advocate particularly for victim assistance and victim rights in bilateral meetings, multilateral meetings, national fora, international coordination mechanisms, but also during the celebrations of international days, such as the 4th of April, which is really for the International Day for Mine Awareness and Victim Assistance, but also, on the 3rd of December for the Convention on People with Disability. We are also collaborating very closely with development partners, with sister agencies and entities from the UN. I can think of UNMAS, I can think of the Interagency Coordination Mine Action Group. Also, in addition to financing, innovation, and you mentioned a little bit best practices. So the experience has shown that also in victim assistance, the pillar on victim assistance would benefit, from sharing experience and applying best practices to diversify the scope of the approach and the efficiency of approaches implemented for victim assistance. You mentioned South-South cooperation, triangular cooperation, regional cooperation, regular in-country cooperations are just few mechanisms to promote this exchange of experience, but also best practices. UNDP, for example, has a standing memorandum of understanding with the ASEAN Mine Action Center for the promotion of regional cooperation and regional initiative, joint resource and expertise mobilization for innovation and knowledge sharing. Allow me to take this opportunity to do a little bit of publicity, which is, you know, the upcoming regional workshop organized by ARMAC in Korea from 24 to 25 on victim assistance. And I hope that this conference will also benefit from this global conference and will enrich the discussions in Korea. This effort would need to be complemented by capacity development in country, because these good practices need to be customized, need to be translated into action in the countries. And for UNDP, our approach to mine action and victim assistance is really anchored in capacity and institutional development. And this is possible because of our convening power, our positioning, strategic positioning with national mine action authorities. Out of the 5 countries affected in ASEAN, we are supporting in 4, while 1 is pending for now. And in addition to other, you know, regional and international mine action centers. Building sustainable development is also part, you know, of that needs some focus when we talk about cooperation. Mine survivors will require a lifelong support. This needs to be integrated, you know, in development, in youth policies, in health policies, in peace building policies. So it needs to be really an intersectoral effort. And it needs to be in continuum with what the mine action sector commitment, if you want, in terms of developing capacities and infrastructure for collecting disaggregated data, analysis of data, but also in terms of setting mechanisms for referral, for victim surveillance, but also in developing the capacity for the production of processes and others. So the humanitarian and development are really, you know, interlinked and interrelated, and they build on each others. So this is particularly important for the countries that are close to completion of their commitments and where the funding would be dwindling. So we need to work now for this upcoming future. Finally, on financial support, it is great if we can mobilize victim assistance funds. But victim assistance can also, as I said, be integrated in other development funds into the broader health system, the peace building and recovery efforts. You know, we worked in different parts of the world on the reintegration of injured combatants, for example. It can also be integrated, you know, in national disability policies, and I can report from Cambodia that victim assistance is part of the disability work, and it has been included as part of the disability in the social protection. As UNDP, we supported this effort, and we complement with an area-based approach to create livelihoods for the survivors, but also sometimes for their families and for their communities. And we link them with other initiatives that UNDP is implementing on environment, on youth, among others. We also are looking into innovative financing and private partnership through corporate social responsibilities, but also through inclusive business models. And this is, you know, for the provision of equipment and supplies, victim and survivors assistance through employment and training, information technology and mobile phone operators for the access to hotlines and other services, but also to work on entrepreneurship development and with some banks, you know, exploring partnership and potential crowdfunding and public-private partnership that are very important, particularly to sustain the local efforts of victim assistance. The success of the convention really depends on our ability to help the member states to really, you know, cross the finish line and be mine-free. And we need to reduce the number of mine-affected countries. Southeast Asia is a region that is promising and can be free, perhaps not for Myanmar, that could be within the next few years free of mine if we are able to draw on the needed attention and support required. This is a teamwork. This is, you know, victim assistance is part of the healing process of the society. So this is very important to have wide partnership between the government, the international community, but particularly the national organization. However, it is important to keep on supporting these actors beyond the treaty compliance. It will have to be a long-term commitment because the victim is affected throughout a life cycle approach that goes beyond the compliance with the convention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alissar. And you mentioned, of course, it's always an issue how these broader frameworks will actually reach survivors in the field, and that takes often a lot of funding. And I want to turn to Dr. Cho the Access program has been lauded as an important a program to support survivors and the inclusion of organizations of persons with disabilities. So if you could give us a few remarks on the work of Access and how it works to include organizations with disability into your programming. Thank you for joining us, by the way.
Hello. Yeah. First of all, yeah, thank you, Mr. Session Chair, and my respect to, let's say, the community of VA and disability inclusion here today. It is my great pleasure to be part of this panelist, and what that I would like to bring to this agenda today is about the experience of Access in contributing in partnership with the Royal Government of Cambodia through the Australian government funding. Before I start that, just would like to mention a few points, history of the Australian government in supporting globally on the VA since 1990. And being a member state signatory of the Ottawa Treaty as well as the UNCOPD Convention, Australian also play a role of supporting other countries to progress this agenda together. So the case of Cambodia, the government of Australia has been supporting more than or almost 20 years in this agenda of disability inclusion, including those who survive of landmine on that. So I come to the point of the Access program. So just mention the full name. Access is stand for Australian Cambodia Corporation for its equitable and sustainable services. So this program has been started as the first round or first stage is the 5 year from last quarter of 2018 until September 2023, just recently. And now continue with the 25 million Australian dollar and continue for another 5 years that's starting from now until 2028. To be in a line in terms of the some of the principles of the Access in terms of partnership and inclusion. So this program designed by contributing to the government, the Royal Government of Cambodia priorities. So we use the NDSP, National Disability Strategic Plan, as the priority. But among those, a lot of priorities that we could not answer, so we could answer some on that. Why we start with that? Because before starting the program, so there is assessment about what could be done and in which way to be done on that, focusing on the long-term sustainability and the government ownership. So we found that the government saying that, okay, if you want to do, please align with our priority, align with our strategy as the guidance, and bring people on board to support us. So Access designed by using those priorities and inviting other in the country to support as the in terms of the expertise and work in collaboration together. So among those, including UN agency, UNDP part of that in that round one, and other including private sector, including NGO, IO, and including the representative umbrella network of OPD at the national level. So among the priority that we focus is one is about strengthening the disability coordination. That's quite important, not just only national, but also sub-national as well. The second point about economic opportunity for people with disability, including landmine survivor on that, and including social protection as the demanding during the COVID-19 late 2019. And the third one is about services, strengthen the sustainability handover of the physical rehabilitation services on that. And as the, how we call like the cross-cutting is about empowering the engagement of representative of person with disability in different areas from the planning, implementation, and monitoring implementation of that. So let me come to the good practice in the success of partnership. Yes, for sure we need to learn more, but what that we found, because before doing that we have the baseline, we have the midterm, and we have the end-line survey to monitor how partnership has been improving or that. So the result is progressing from the starting of 67% among the partners we interview or certifying or understanding the program, sharing responsibility, sharing information, and then the end line is increasing to, depending on area, from another 79, another 89% like that. So why we success all that? So by starting, we talking about the governance mechanism of this program. So the government is on board at the steering committee at the decision-making guidance focus on priority, and also the government focal point also joining in the program at the technical level in terms of implementation. The second point is about we don't build the parallel new system. So we use the existing system and how to strengthen the existing to be functional. Functional here we mean by if the coordination meeting it happen regularly, if the member of the meeting have the good capacity on the topic, if the planning has been well included the need of person with disability, if any monitoring implementation of that planning. So those are the criteria set and then agree from the beginning. In addition, we also investing in building a relationship and also joint planning. So joint planning from the start quite important. Who can do what, and then we join together so we know each other. We complement each other on this area. The last point is about facilitate collaboration across the government and non-government stakeholders. So we bring people together and then we share what progress, what we learn, and what could be addressed in the coming period. The number two is about the meaning engagement of the OPD. In the context of social protection, we found that the knowledge of the OPD in understanding the issue of social protection, the scheme that they should be benefit, how they can benefit the different process to get this scheme. So quite important to build the self-confidence so they can advocate and talk to the right thing and talk to the right people. So in addition, we facilitate the national dialogue between policymaker and the OPD to talk to the policymaker, and then easy to policymaker to understand and how to adjust the social protection scheme to be more inclusive. Last point I would like to bring also is about, we always see about the issue of capacity, part of the sustainability, especially OPD at the grassroots level. So by having guidelines, by training them, it's quite important to put this capacity sustain. Although we finish, so the OPD have the capacity to continue on that. But yes, we recognize about the issue of challenging in continue the access to finance that keep also sustainable. So another stage, how should be the government also consider part of the government funding to support the OPD for their functioning on that. So I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cho, for those remarks and for your insight into what Access does. I do recommend that everyone look at the Access program because they have a very interesting model. Now, let me pass the floor now to the European Union. It's one of the largest donors in Mine Action, and I'd like to see if you can enlighten us with the work of the EU as well as how one may go about to work together with the EU in partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. Thank you for inviting me here. And I'll try to be shorter because I think we're running short on time. The EU and its 27 member states have a very long history of supporting mine clearance and destruction of stockpiled anti-personnel mines, as well as assistance to victims. As you might know, all our 27 member states are signatory parties to the Ottawa Convention. The interest of our member states and the institutions is reflected also by the over 800 million euro in humanitarian mine action assistance over the last 6 years. The assistance only in 2022 was 90 million euros, contributing to various programs in 20 mine-affected countries. And most of these programs have also included victim assistance components. About a third of the EU support for mine action is provided through the European Commission's instrument contributing to stability and peace, or as we call it, ICSP, but there are at least 8 other geographic and thematic instruments that fund mine action, both in Europe's neighborhood but also around the world. In regard of policy work, the Council of the EU has adopted detailed conclusions already in 2014 to support the implementation of the universalization of the Ottawa Convention, and there have been many decisions since, mostly related to different important meetings in these issues globally. These conclusions also underline the strong linkage between victim assistance in mine action and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which provide a wider framework to comprehensively address the needs of survivors of landmine and other ordnance accidents. The conclusions also mandated the EU to finance from the EU budget the global work on universalization of the Ottawa Convention, including core support for the functioning of the ICU. Now, zooming in specifically on victim assistance, this remains, of course, a core component, as I said, of EU's mine action approach. We seek to strengthen the care, rehabilitation, and socio-economic reintegration of both women, girls, boys, and men who have fallen victim to anti-personnel mines or other ordinances. The very latest decision of the Council from 2021 in support of the Oslo Action Plan also supports full, equal, effective, and non-discriminatory participation of mine victims in society as a key component of victim assistance. The funding attached to this decision includes supporting conferences like this one. That's why you see all the EU flags around. And of course, many of the national dialogues that we're also very keen to engage with. Now, going back to the second part of your question, how to engage us in funding, well, it's actually pretty simple, although we are very complicated institutions, it's very complicated procedures. But the easy thing is that we have EU delegations in almost all of these countries where mine-affected countries. So the easiest thing is to just go to our EU delegations and talk to our colleagues there. We have cooperation colleagues, we have humanitarian colleagues, depending on the country, sometimes both. And they are the best contact point for anyone looking for funding. They are in contact with local authorities, they know the local realities, there are antennas in the field, and they're the best place to connect with local mine action needs and most suitable to identify the instrument that is best usable for your program among the many that we have. Unfortunately, we are a very complicated institution, but our colleagues know how to navigate that. So yes, go to our EU delegations. And I'll stop there, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to the EU. I'm sorry, colleagues, I think we have to wrap up for the closing in Ballroom 1 because there's the high-level delegation has arrived. So I ask you to take your headsets to Ballroom 1, but I'd like to thank all the panelists. I'd like to make note just of the importance of South-South cooperation and cooperation between states, as in the Oslo Action Plan, the importance of supporting organizations of persons with disability, involving them and including them, the importance of looking at donors and what they would like to see in the specific context, the importance of broader frameworks without losing sight that survivors make sure that funding arrives to survivors, the importance of capacity building and supporting organizations of persons with disability and supporting not national level, but also the local levels as well. And of course, to work with the EU delegations and other donors and seek their support in capital where the delegations are. And I'm sorry that we can't discuss, but we're going towards a very important year next year to the Oslo Review Conference, so I hope that you stay engaged on cooperation assistance. It's going to be extremely important. It always has been. So I hope that you continue the discussion going forward so that in the Oslo Action Plan we can make sure we get cooperation and assistance right. So thank you so much, and the Siem Reap Action Plan, I mean. So thank you so much, and please, I ask you to go to Ballroom 1, and please take your headsets with you. So thank you so much, and if you could just applaud the panelists one more time, and thank you so much.